We're making a base kind of with that drizzle wrap around, as you can see on some of those. I'm going to kind of go over some of the stuff up here first. We work out of a furnace. We use that as a reheating chamber as well. Inside of there, aside from being hot, we've got a giant bowl of clear glass. Inside of a bowl that's called a crucible. It's about that thick-ish, probably not that thick anymore, but that big around, that deep, and it can hold up to 80 pounds or so of clear glass. All we have in there is clear. We put our color on, usually with these chips of color called Frit, F-R-I-T. They're colored all the way through using metals and oxides. Copper can give you a red or a light blue. Cobalt can give you a darker, rich blue. Gold can give you a pink. They would not have historically used Frit. They would have had multiple colors or a single color in the furnace, and they would have just used that. No polka dots historically, did not happen. It's about 2,000 degrees in there. All we have is clear. So for this pattern, I'm pretty much going to be just putting white on it and then blowing it out, and then we're going to put a wrap on it. But if you have any questions, please let me know. I should be able to answer them. But I'm going to end up taking it out, covering it white after a while. And then I'm going to cover that with clear glass and then blow it out. I also probably forgot like 10 minutes of my speech, but I'm really tired. So we can't use any glass on the rod, so I'm just kind of pulling it off of the rod, but we do need kind of an anchor, so we leave a little bit on there, and that kind of holds it to the rod. Because we're doing a specific color pattern, normally I would put the color on and start the bubble. But I'm going to start a tiny bubble because it makes it easier later. So we start with a hollow pipe. Mouthpiece, hollow. To start a bubble or to blow into it, I'm going to blow into it and cap the end with my thumb because it's really hot. It's going to come out really quickly, but it usually doesn't come out that quickly. But I'm going to cap it with my thumb and then slowly turn and it'll come out. Hopefully not too huge at first. So this table is called the Marver, a Marver. M-A-R-V-E-R. It is made out of steel. We use it to shape the glass and hold random stuff. But if I cool the sides and then blow, the air will seek out the hotter parts. So if I cool the sides, it'll go that way. If I cool the tip, it'll blow out the sides. I don't want my bubble to be huge yet. I just need it to kind of start. Then I'm going to cover this in a moment, and then I'll put white on top of it. But I need to let this cool down. If I tried to cover it right now, this would get really hot really quickly and collapse on itself. So I'm letting it cool down so it's more of a sturdy base or foundation. Historically, furnaces would have looked somewhat like this, except they would have used wood instead of propane, which is what we use. Somebody would have been shoveling wood in the back. People would have been pulling glass out of the front. Probably bad jobs for those people. I'm gonna end up just putting white on here. Probably 3 coats. I want the white to be solid. And if I only put one on and then started blowing, it would start to fade and dissipate. So I want it to be blatant white background. Glass was pretty much, I don't want to say discovered, but found out about when BC turned to AD around then. But it was mostly beads or arrowheads, most likely. And then they kind of started casting it. They didn't start blowing it until later. And then pretty much the Romans took off with it because they had a sweet port city that could distribute it everywhere. And then Rome fell and the Italians pretty much took over. And then we tried our best to steal it from them. And they hated us for it. The Italian masters were not even allowed to leave Italy because they had secrets of glass, which is kind of weird to think about. So now that I've got my white on there, I'm going to get it bigger a little bit. I do already have my bubble, so I'm going to give this an even shape and then blow, kind of fill the bubble out more before I cover it again. I'm pretty much always trying to keep my shape even and symmetrical so that when I blow, my bubble will go out even and symmetrical and there won't be thinner spots in places unless I'm trying to make that spot thinner or thicker. But I'm going to give the whole thing an even shape and then I'm going to more so focus on the sides so I can push my bubble out. So it'll kind of blow up like a sphere and then I can push the bubble down on the sides. Actually shaping the glass, so to speak. The water is instantly turning to steam and there's actually like a shield or a bed of steam between the glass and the paper. I don't know if I can explain it any better. I wouldn't be a glass blower, I'm sorry. Just cover it with clear. It just looks orange because it's so hot. Just like when steel gets really hot, it turns red or orange. Glass does the same thing. Most things on this planet do the same thing. I'm not necessarily trying to change the shape. What I had before I encased it with clear was a decent shape. So I'm just trying to mediate these temperatures. I just put really hot glass on top of really cold glass, and I need those to kind of get closer together before I start changing the shape. I would not want to blow right now. Probably wouldn't be a big deal since the whole thing's white, but the colors heat up differently. And if air seeks out the hotter parts, that would not work well. So when I come out this time, I'm going to give it an even shape, and then I can start blowing it out bigger. Pretty much into a giant teardrop shape. Ish. So I can swing it around and use the weight and gravity centrifugal force, make it stretch it out, give it some length, and better my shape. But at this point, I gotta start thinking about getting it off of the rod. So to do that, I'm gonna put a constriction line right off the end, and that's where it's gonna break off. I don't want to start that too late because I have to heat the whole thing to do it. So before I get any bigger, I'm gonna definitely make sure I start that. I use these are called jacks. I'm making a jack line. So I'm right off the end of the rod, gently squeezing as I turn, gradually squeezing hard. So I'm going to lengthen out a bit more, and then we're going to start putting the rest of the color pattern on there with the assistance of Meg. Got a solid rod. She's going to gather some clear glass and then put multiple coats of color onto it. And then I'm going to, I guess you would call it a bird's nest wrap it all over the piece. End up grabbing the rod with the color on there and just kind of drizzling it around. giving it a nice heat, and then we're gonna end up putting a foot or a pedestal on the bottom, so I'm not needing to flatten it, so to speak. So she's getting some more clear glass on the solid rod. She's gonna cut it off on that square, and I'm gonna stamp it on the bottom. Now I've got probably 2 heats worth to shape and flatten the foot before I need it to kind of set up on its own. I don't have ample time to work with a piece that's added to it like that. If I tried to, it would distort the rest of the piece. Flatten these with wood paddles. All of our wood's made out of cherry wood. Fruit woods are denser and don't burn as much. The blocks are made out of the same thing. It's good. Pretty much done with this part. We're gonna move on. The next part, we're gonna put a solid rod right in the center of the bottom and break it off at the jack line and flip it around. So this is a punty rod. I'm making a punty. It's just a little bit of glass on the end, a little bit more off the end, usually shaped in a dome or a point, but does not have to be. That's just kind of a usual thing. You can make a bunny on a blowpipe. The temperature is probably more important than the shape, maybe. Jack line where I cinched it down. Then I can tap the rod. We're gonna come off. But now I'm trying to heat up the tip, which was the coldest part, closest to the rod. So this heat does take a moment. When I come out, I'm going to be pretty much trying to set it up for the next step, which is a lip wrap we're gonna put on the tip of it. I want it to be nice and even, hopefully. Melt that in and start opening it up. To open it, I use the jacks again, except this time I'm going inside of the piece instead of on the outside to shape it. But I'm gonna go inside, and then if I raise my arm or lower my arm, that'll open the diameter. If I change the angle of the jacks, that'll flare the lip. I mean, technically we could stop at any point and say we're done. We would have to do. So I could leave it at that, but I'm not. I'm gonna heat pretty much the front half and let it open up on its own when it's really toasty. Centrifugal force will help. And then I can come out and swing it, and it'll give it some distance and flare the top.